Hi, everybody. Hope you're doing well. It's Monday, May 11th. Happy Monday. Hope you guys had a good weekend and good luck to all of you who are taking any APs this week. I know you're prepared and you're going to do great. We just have a little over a week before AP Psych, and I'm super excited. Today's video is just over development. I think I can get it all done within 20 minutes for just one video. So then I'll do a quick Unit 10 personality, just kind of review video, and then the same with Unit 11. I'll just do a quick overview. No homework this week for me, so no assignments that are actually going to be due on Schoology. I'm going to do a video every day, so I'd love it if you still would watch that for me. And then, hopefully you're studying that cram packet or you're watching crash course videos. You're doing something every day for studying for AP Psych because the more concepts you know and you're familiar with, the easier it's going to be to do the FRQ without using your notes. Again, if you have questions or you want to go over anything, I love it when you guys reach out. I loved all your teacher appreciation messages. So just know I totally appreciated it, and you just made my week emailing me about that. Thank you. But if you want to get together in small groups and do just some checks, FRQ checks, whatever it is that you want to do, I'm happy to help you. And just don't forget that the AP Psych test is May 19th at 2 o'clock. You can get in, like they're asking for you to get in about 15, 20 minutes, even a half hour early, because there's stuff that you have to do in order to get into that waiting room and then take the test. So, if you haven't got emails, let me know. If you need anything, let me know. I'm happy to help. Okay, so quickly, Unit 9. I thought this was going to take me a little longer, and I thought there were going to be more slides. It seems like such a big unit, but when you break it down, it's not as overwhelming. So I think I can get through this pretty quickly. Okay. All right, so we started the unit and talked about the prenatal development. So just make sure that you know conception is when the sperm fertilizes the egg. And remember, one egg, it's one sperm that fertilizes one egg. And then for twins, that's a monozygote. So it's like one egg that splits into two. And that's your identical twin. So it's from the same egg, it just splits into two sacs. Fraternal moms, they ovulate two eggs at a time. So those are two different eggs that were fertilized. And that's where it's fraternal twins. Okay, so just make sure you know the difference between that. So it goes conception, gestation, and then prenatal development. So the zygote is the 0 to 2 weeks, and that's where the sperm fertilizes the egg starts to divide cells and everything, and that's when crazy forming of the fetus and the embryo are happening. So from 0 to 2 weeks, it goes to the embryo, which is 2 to 9 weeks, and that's where all of the vital organs are formed. And then once 9 weeks to 40 weeks, then that becomes the fetus. Okay, and that's like all the overall development. A big thing that I would keep in mind with prenatal development is know what the teratogen is, and that's those outside substances that impact the development of the fetus. So things like alcohol, flu can definitely impact the kind of nutrition, just anything from the outside that kind of comes in that can, seep into the baby. That would be the teratogen, okay? And fetal alcohol syndrome is the one that usually sometimes is asked on the AP exam, and that's where the mom drinks heavily, not just one drink every now and then. It's like consuming lots and lots of alcohol during the 9-month pregnancy. Okay, so I think that's everything from the prenatal. So then once the baby's born, there's this physical maturation where you develop these motor skills. So sometimes that might be on an AP exam. So just know that, first the baby sits up, and that's usually around 6 months, developmentally like 6 months. Typically babies crawl around 9 months, walk around 12 months, and then run you know, after you're walking, those babies start to run pretty quick. So about 14 months from there. Okay, so 6 months is crawling, or 6 months is sitting up by themselves, 9 months is crawling, 12 months is walking, and about 14 to 15 months, then they're running. Okay. All right, and then cognitive development. This one is like the huge one. So this is Piaget's stages. So I definitely would know these. You want to make sure you have a really good understanding of what's happening in each of the phases, because this one, I think this one definitely could be on there. Okay, so Piaget, there's 4 stages of development. And remember, we had Michaela's cute little brother who came in and he did some demonstration on conservation. And so that was part of Piaget's development stages. Okay, so the first stage that kids are in, it's the sensory motor. So remember, like they're just sensing their earth, like they're just sensing the world, right? It's all senses. So it's 0 to 2 years old. It's focused on the babies experiencing life through senses. So they put so many things into their mouth. Object permanence, that's going to be in this phase. And remember, that's where like peekaboo, they don't really understand that you're not there even though you're doing peekaboo, right? So objects are removed from the field of view and they're really thought to disappear. Like they think that they're gone. Stranger anxiety happens in this phase too for the kids. So this stage is 0 to 2. When they get this, when they start to understand object permanence and stranger anxiety, that's when they move into the pre-operational stage. And that's a little longer. It's from ages 2 to 7. They use pretend play. They develop language. They're using their reasoning skills. And this is where conservation happens. Remember, those were the tasks that we were asking Michaela's little brother to do for us. So conservation basically is that ability to recognize that substances from the same, like they remain the same, even though like the shape, the length, the position changes, right? And so they lack conservation in this stage. When they start to get it, that's when they move into the concrete operational. Okay, and the same thing as egocentrism is in this pre-operational phase. That's where it's that inability to like distinguish one's own perspective from another. So they think that, you know, everybody thinks the same way, right? Like I believe this, I see this, so everybody sees this. They're in that egocentric phase. And so they lack it. And then they go in, once they get it, then they go into the concrete operational. And that's where they're using more operational thinking. They can think logically. They can, you know, they can classify things. Like it's just all kind of coming together a little bit better for them. Okay. And then formal operational, that is 12 years old and beyond. And that's where like the hypothetical reasoning, abstract thinking, critical thinking, all of those things come into play with formal operational. So sensory motors first, 0 to 2, pre-operational 2 to 7, lots are happening there, conservation, egocentrism. And then concrete operational, that goes 7 to 11, and then beyond that, 12 and up. Okay, I think I have a couple here, yep. So then it shows it, the birth to 2 years old, 2 to 7, concrete operational, that's when they start to understand that conservation. And then the formal operational stage, they're critically thinking there. And then I have it spelled out again. I got a couple slides in there for you. Oops. So again, we talked about all these. And then object permanence, just to kind of reiterate, you know, I love a meme. This little cutie pie is saying, you mean to tell me she's hiding behind her hands? And the same thing, this one is just a really funny one about peekaboo. Conservation, we did all of these with Michaela's little brother. We did the water, we did, this little example is doing checkers, but we did it with coins, and then clay, and then length. Okay, so just a quick overview. And then, you know, with Piaget, he always brings up like assimilation, accommodation, and schemas. So this slide is just kind of reiterating what that is. This here with the sports car, we talked about this a couple units ago, I believe, in learning, where we talked about schemas. So this sports car, that's an example of a schema, right? You have the sports car. What are the characteristics that go with the sports car? So it's fast, it's shiny, it's expensive, it's small. So that's where kids kind of have these schemas, and then they assimilate that information and then accommodate that information, right? So assimilation, you know, they see this four-legged animal for the first time, so it goes into their existing schema that it must be a dog, and then they call it a dog, right? Accommodation has this existing schema, right? Here's the four-legged dog. Someone points out that this is a cat, even though it has four legs. So then they realize that not all four-legged animals are dogs. There's cats and there's cows and different things. So that's all in this cognitive development that Piaget talks about. Okay, now on the opposite end of that, Vygotsky too, he did the cognitive development as well, but he really was focused on the zone of proximal development. And Vygotsky, Lev Vygotsky, he was really big on more like educational psychology. So he didn't feel like there were stages of cognitive development like Piaget. He was very involved with education and the education world. And he felt like true education and meaningful learning happens like in between, right? What the child knows and then what they would know with the help of like a parent or a teacher or their peers. So that's that zone of proximal development. So you can see that from this slide here. Like the middle is where they are. And so they already know these things, but then could they learn more if they had the help of, the teacher and whatever that is. So he called that the zone of proximal development. So just make sure that you kind of know that. And then he developed that into the sociocultural theory of development, which just means, the fancy way to say it's just like the children with the society and learning from parents and teachers. So I don't think you'll be tested on that, but okay. So from there, so cognitive development, that was with Piaget and Vygotsky. And then there was the social development theory. And remember, back with some of our experiments that were kind of unethical, this would definitely go into that. This was the Harry Harlow one that he did with the rhesus monkeys. So remember that one where he took, these monkeys and then he put them with, they had wire moms, like you can kind of see here. But one mom had cloth. And then the other mom was just the wire mom with the feeding thing. So you can see that there in this one. And the majority of the time, the monkeys spent with the cloth mom because of that comfort, and that's what they wanted. So that was this like social development that came about from that. What else did I want to tell you with that? So they were only with the mothers with the food about an hour or two a day. And then the rest of the time they were with the mom that had the cloth with it. Okay. And then don't forget imprinting. That's where the ducks, wherever they were first born, they follow, whoever is right there with them. They imprint. So ducks do this. Humans don't ever do this, but these are the ducks that followed Konrad Lorenz. And then remember that episode? I don't know if I showed it to you in class, but if you watch Modern Family, I love Modern Family. Phil had those ducks that were delivered, I think, in his bathtub, and he was not there, but Claire was there. And so they followed Claire around everywhere because they kind of imprinted with her. So it was kind of funny. Mary Ainsworth is also in this social development, and she created that strange situation where she did different types of attachment. And there was the secure attachment, insecure avoidant attachment, insecure ambivalent attachment. So she kind of had, she did that with little kids and she did that experiment with like kids when their parents left. And basically the gist of it is, how you attach then influences us later in life. Okay. And so she said that research showed that securely attached kids, which were about 60% of her experiment, she found that securely attached kids generally tend to be more well developed and more resilient when older. So that's kind of the important thing from her strange situation experiment. And you can kind of see, what types, how they reacted in this slide here. And then parenting styles, that goes along with the social development as well. And so here's, I found a slide that was a little, that showed it a little bit better than maybe what I had in the Prezi. But so I think the biggest thing is just remembering that authoritative parent versus authoritarian parent. So the authoritarian, like a totalitarian, I don't even know if I'm saying that right. The authoritarian, that's the really one that's strict, rigid, tiger mom, like this is the highway, this is my way, the highway, it's very inflexible and very strict, authoritarian. The authoritative is definitely more nurturing. They're having you be a part of conversations, to come up with rules. Things are open for discussion. But the thing about this is there still are rules, but they just aren't as strict as the authoritarian parent. Okay, so those are two that I would definitely make sure that you know the difference of, because I could see that being part of an FRQ question. And then a permissive parent versus an uninvolved parent, maybe making the difference between those two. A permissive parent, they provide you all your needs, but they just let you do whatever you want. Where an uninvolved parent would be more like neglectful, like they don't have any interaction. You're getting things on your own, like very neglectful. Okay, so don't forget those authoritative. I'd like to think of myself as an authoritative versus an authoritarian parent. And then Erikson stages, I just feel like making sure you know these and like the order of them. So, trust versus mistrust, autonomy versus shame, all of those down to ego, integrity versus despair. I would kind of know them and just kind of know like what's happening in each of those. I think this slide might do it a little bit better, but I would definitely, this is right from your book. I would definitely know what's happening in each of these. So with trust versus mistrust, it's infancy when you're first born, you're brand new to the world, right? You are relying on all of your needs to be met by your caregiver. So that trust that you have, it makes you able to go on then to the next one. Autonomy versus shame. This is smaller toddlers. They're just trying to do things for themselves, like maybe put shoes on themselves. If parents don't support them, then they feel shame and doubt. But then if they are supported, then you go on to the next phase, that initiative versus guilt. This is where, kids are taking more initiative to do things for themselves. They don't have to be told what to do all the time. But if they're helped, they might feel guilty for, not doing it on their own. Industry versus inferiority. This is more elementary age. And this is where you learn what you're good at. Like, I'm good at math, I'm good at English, I'm good at soccer. And you start to feel that industry versus inferiority. So they might be like, oh, I'm not as good as Susie at softball. I feel inferior. So that's where kids are starting to kind of get a grasp on what I'm good at. Identity versus role confusion. This is kind of like adolescence and maybe where you're at right now. Just who are your preferences? Who are you? What do you want to do with the rest of your life? You're testing boundaries, you're testing roles. All that good stuff is in that identity versus role confusion. Then it moves to intimacy versus isolation. That's that early adulthood, and the conflict here is just like finding your partner, maybe having a family in this one, career possibly is in this one. And then generativity versus stagnation, that's middle adulthood. And this is really focused more on your career and what you're contributing to the world. And then the last one would be integrity versus despair. And this is late adulthood. And this is really where you're reflecting on your life. Did I make a difference? You might feel satisfaction or you might feel failure. So just really kind of going over that one again, or having those definitely out when you're doing the FRQ, because, you know, I could see that one of those stages being on the FRQ for sure. Okay, Kohlberg's theories here, those are those three moral development theories. So pre-conventional, that's I do the right thing because I get rewarded or punished. The second one is conventional morality. That's I do the right thing because people are watching, right? And then post-conventional is I do the right thing and there's a reason why you should do the right thing, right? Like it's bigger than me. So it's really driven by those like moral like principles. Okay. And then last thing here, I think, yeah, gender development. Just kind of keep in mind that gender roles, those are those expected behaviors or norms that men and women have or, you know, are associated with them. And then the big thing here, I would just know that social learning theory. And that's basically how we learn our gender roles, right? So we watch, like my mom, I'm a girl, so I watch my mom and what she does, and she cleans and she cooks, where, you know, my dad is out mowing the lawn, whatever that is. Like that's how they learn, kind of like boys do this, girls do this, like, you know, girls wear pink, boys wear blue. That's all in that social learning theory. The only difference with gender schema theory is that there's like some thinking that's involved with that, right? So cognition, right? So social learning is just like observing the way we learn things, but then the gender schema adds that thinking. So I see my grandma baking cookies and I'm a girl, I should bake cookies. So that thinking and that thought part of it is that gender schema theory. Okay, I just went over by 1 minute. I'm so sorry. I hope that was helpful. No homework, but just please be studying. Please, please, please go over your notes, go over your review packets, go over my exam cram sheet. I really feel like that's pretty comprehensive. Yeah, and let me know if you need anything, okay? See you guys tomorrow. Take care.